Good. So I'd like to welcome Art Sobczak to this podcast. Let me tell you a little about Art. Art has written some great books on telephone selling. I would reckon Art to be the world number one when it comes to training people on telephone selling. I've got to hold my hands up. I've stolen some of Art's material. I've stolen a lot of Art's material because Art is a guy, when it comes to telephone selling, knows what he's talking about. He started his first sales job at the age of 13. We'll hear a little more about that. Selling tickets to a police fundraising circus, which sounds interesting. And for the past 37 years, he's been a professional teaching sales and sales prospecting using the telephone. And particularly at this time, when we're recording this while we're still under this COVID-19, telephone sales has become just that bit more important. Never that it was any less important, but it's become more important now. So Art has trained hundreds and thousands of salespeople, and I would encourage you to subscribe to Art's newsletter and get a hold of Art's books. But one of the reasons I invited Art today, he has updated Smart Selling, and I wanted to start off, Art, by telling me what are the updates you've made to the new book, the new edition of Smart Selling.
All right. Well, hey, Colin, first of all, thank you so much for having me on. It's an honor. And so what's new with the third edition of Smart Calling? Well, the original came out 10 years ago. We updated it a couple of years after that. And so it's been about 7 years since we've touched it. And I'll tell you what has not changed is the process. The process still works. And for people who aren't familiar with it, Smart Calling is a method of prospecting. The title, actually, the subtitle is Eliminate the Fear, Failure, and Rejection from Cold Calling. And what we're doing with Smart Calling is pretty simple. It's basically knowing something about the people we call before we call them so that we can personalize, customize, and tailor our message so that it's relevant and it stands out from the thousands of other messages that people get every day. So again, the process has been proven and it works and it's been field tested. So what we did with the new edition is that I put in some new ideas. I refined the process a little bit just based on experience and working with thousands of reps out in the field. But then I also added the experiences and success stories and best practices from sales pros themselves, people who had sent me in, here's what I'm using, here's how it works, here's what I'm saying, here's the questions I'm asking, here's how I get through to decision makers using your process. And I just had files and files of this. So we decided to put that into the book, the third edition, as well as the companion course or resource library, which is online, because you know how publishers are. They won't let you put out a 2,000-page book. I guess paper costs a lot. So we have an online companion course that every chapter has a corresponding module online, and people get that free. So we've got audio, video, scripts, best practices, entire webinars, all kinds of material. So again, people really haven't changed in the past 10 years, but other than they're busier and they're getting more messages, which really makes the process more important, meaning that we've got to be more relevant with our messaging.
Yes, exactly. So how much do you think telephone sales calling has changed since 1983?
Well, we have push button phones now instead of dial rotary. Yeah. Actually, yeah. Again, I mean, here's the thing, Collie. The human mind has not changed. I mean, the need for human interaction has not changed. Of course, what has changed is technology, and what's changed for the better is our ability to get more information easily prior to picking up the phone so that we can put together a better message. What also has changed is it's tougher to get through to actual buyers today because, again, they're inundated with so many messages. I mean, way back in the day when I was in my 20s, when I first started, I mean, we could call people up and there was a pretty good chance somebody was going to pick up the phone. Today, of course, we've got voicemail, we've got automated attendance. Some people still have assistants. Some people like to call them screeners. I don't like to call them screeners because that's negative. So again, this all highlights and emphasizes the need to make sure that our messaging is relevant and personalized and customized so that it has some chance of actually being responded to. And of course, today you probably see the same thing. It takes multiple attempts to get through to decision makers. Usually, I mean, sometimes we call somebody, but they might pick up on the first ring. But we use the other means available to us in our cadence is the word. So that might be email, might be in-mail, might be voicemail, might be snail mail. It might be text, it might be video. So, or it might be all of the above, depending on somebody's strategy.
Yeah. How do you feel about email versus snail mail? Is that something that you would recommend?
Well, I'm a big fan of using regular mail, a handwritten note with a live stamp, because that's almost guaranteed to get opened. Email, well, we know what we do with most emails that we see from someone who we don't know, and it looks like it's going to be a sales pitch. Either gets deleted or maybe skimmed, and rarely do they get replied to, right? But a handwritten note, and if we want to go one step further, if we want to send something physical in the mail, that's a great way to warm up a call. In my case, I send copies of my book. Not everybody has that advantage. I would encourage people to send copies of my book, by the way. But you can send copies of anyone's book along with a handwritten note, or you could sign the inside, and it should not be a sales pitch. But then when we call, we use that as a way to get in, and we can use that with the assistant saying, hey, I'm the guy that sent him a book. Did that come across your desk by chance? So yeah, big believer in sending something physical in today's digital age.
Yeah, and I think regular mail, and I know that he's a friend of yours, is Anthony Parinello, and who gives some guidance in using regular mail, which I have used with great success as well to get me in the door. I had one recently where I sent it to the CEO of a company. And when I went to call the CEO, he had already passed my regular mail to the decision maker regarding training. So it does work, So I'm sure you're like me. I always say I better practice what I preach.
You say you don't, or you do?
I do. I said I better practice.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Whenever I'm on a phone call with a prospect, I got to make sure I have my A game, and of course I always do, because we're being judged every single moment. And we should as well.
Yeah. Well, tell me, how did you become a smart caller?
How to become a smart caller? Well, I mean, way back when I first started my business, and again, I started my business at a pretty young age. I was 23 the first time I left corporate life, and myself and a partner, we made every mistake in the book by starting a business, meaning we left a corporate job, cushy corporate job with a good salary, and we had no clients. We went out and we invested in office furniture and office space, and we had no revenue coming in. So I might have missed that class in business school. So we had to go out and generate revenue in a hurry. And so we of course, were practicing what we preach, which is jumping on the phone and making, they were cold calls at the time, but even then, back then, I knew that in order to make our calls more relevant, we wanted to know something about the people we're calling. So of course, this was pre-internet days. So the research we were doing would be finding something in the newspaper, or going to the library and checking out industry publications or directories. And then, of course, doing some social engineering. What I teach, social engineering, is talking to people other than a decision maker within an organization to get some intel. And so I was doing a form of smart calling 35 plus years ago, and I just didn't call it that. And then as I built my business and built the training practice and started incorporating these things, I started calling it smart calling right before the book was published in 2010. And I had a number of publishers over the years who had been contacting me, asking me to do a book. That's how publishing works. They're not looking for authors. They're looking for people that can sell books, because they get authors contacting them every day. And I had a track record of selling books of my own for a number of years because I self-published. And I thought, you know what, the time's right now. I want to really blow up this brand, this smart calling brand, and going with the publisher. That was one of the advantages of going with the publisher. So that's how smart calling came about. But how did I do it? Again, it's common sense, really. It's the alternative to the cold call, because calling somebody cold to me just never made sense. And actually, it's kind of rude, because what we're doing is we're interrupting somebody, and if we haven't taken the time to know something about them, to me, that's disrespecting their time.
Yeah, and it's amazing, when you say smart calling versus cold calling. And I was speaking to a colleague, and I said, look, I was doing a podcast with you, and he goes, what does Art actually do? And he does telephone sales calling. He actually picks up the phone and calls somebody. And my friend says, do people still do that? And I go, yes, every day. Mm-hmm. The other thing that we come up against, and my own sister-in-law experienced it today, is the scam calls. She got a scam call today to say that somebody had broken into her Amazon account and taken money out of her Amazon account. So she's not very tech savvy, so I had to go and change her Amazon password. And she goes, why are they targeting me? And I goes, no, they're using auto dialers to get you. And that's just one of the problems of today. That's the downside.
Well, they're just criminals, and they just happen to be using the telephone as their tool to communicate. And of course, those people should be thrown in jail and throw away the key, right? Because that's just as bad as robbing a bank, or going into a store and just robbing the store. Or it's even worse, because they're preying on trusting, unsuspecting people. But yeah, and I'm not a believer in the robocalls either. We get those all the time. And I mean, it's sad, because what happens then is that it makes people skeptical every time the phone rings, wondering, who is this, or what is this? And that also further underscores and highlights the need for us as professional salespeople to make sure that from the very first instant we are differentiating ourselves, and people realize that, oh, this is a professional. This is somebody who may have something of potential value.
Because these guys can be so convincing. And thank goodness my sister-in-law phoned me first and said, what should I do? I've given them my cell phone number. They're going to call me back. And I said, when they call you back, just tell them to go away.
Yeah.
So luckily, but she could have been easily walked into, one of those people who just doesn't know, but she's now more aware of that. And that, unfortunately, but it comes back to, and one of the things I always liked about your suggestion is that, and I feel the most important thing is how you actually open the call, whether it is with, and I know you call them screeners, or you don't like the word screeners. I don't like the word gatekeepers, because what I tell people, I had an interesting one with a company who shall not be nameless, and they had me listen into they were having problems getting to decision makers. And how they handled the person who answered the phone on the front line was when they asked what it was about, and they said, no, we need to talk to the decision maker because I don't think this is of any interest to you, and I don't think you're in a position to make a decision about it. And I immediately said, I can see why all your calls are failing. They actually were rude to, whether it is, we over here would usually call them receptionists or someone like that, who handle the calls. So I'd like you to talk a little about the opening, because I can see that is, I feel is the most crucial part of the whole call. I don't know if you feel that too, Art, or what's your thoughts on it?
Absolutely. I would say that more calls have died in the first 10 seconds due to what salespeople say than due to any other reason. And matter of fact, in the book, we list, I think, 29 mistakes that salespeople make right away that causes them to get hung up on, or causes the person to go into, let's get rid of this salesperson frame of mind. So absolutely, the opening statement is critical. And I believe that the opening has really two objectives that we're trying to accomplish. Number one is to put somebody in a positive, receptive state of mind, because when we call, and if we did not have any prior communication, this call's an interruption, they weren't expecting our call, they pick it up, they hear an unfamiliar voice, the natural reaction is to be a little skeptical, a little guarded, and wondering, okay, who is this and what do they want? So very quickly, I want to put them in, again, this positive, receptive state of mind. And then the only other objective is to get them talking from that positive, receptive state of mind, not a negative frame of mind where they're going to say, I'm good, I'm not interested. What we want them to say is, oh, sure. We want them to lean in and say, okay, yeah, what do you want to know? Yeah. And now we're going to engage them in a conversation, because now they're curious. And we don't do that by talking about product. I always tell people, don't talk about your thing, because people don't buy the thing. They buy the feeling of the result that they're going to potentially get. So we want to make them curious. And it has to be personalized for them, because now they're putting themselves in the picture of, there might be something here for me. And that's the question that everybody's asking. I remember that in my first corporate sales training. Everybody's listening to the same radio station, WIIFM, right? What's in it for me? People want to know, how are you going to help me? And that's really the importance of smart calling. And that is, this call is going to be all about you. And by the way, the opening statement, the way we open, the voicemail message should be pretty much identical to that. I mean, why would it be any different? The only thing that is different in a voicemail message is, I don't like to say, and please call me, I want to take control. I'll say, I will call you back Friday morning. If you'd like to reach me in the meantime, I will send you an email with my number. Let me know when you'd like to speak.
Yeah, and just on voicemail, I see many telephone salespeople missing a great opportunity. Art, they go, oh, it's a waste of time to leave a voicemail. They won't listen to it. And I said, well, you're missing out the opportunity for a commercial.
Well, yeah, you've already done the heavy lifting, if you think about it, right? We've done our pre-call planning. We've already put together our messaging for our opening. So why wouldn't I take the extra 10 or 15 seconds and leave that voicemail? But again, we're not pitching in the voicemail. We're not asking for a decision. And really, the voicemail should just leave a question in somebody's mind that they want the answer to. I wonder who this colleague guy is, and I wonder how they get those results for other people. Okay, so when that call comes in again, maybe I'll pick it up. I might tell my assistant, if that call comes in, let him through. Or if I see an email from you, I may reply. So now I've got some mind share there, because I've created some curiosity.
Yeah, and my point to people is, if you leave 50 voicemails and get one reply, it's been worth it, because how long is it taking you to leave a voicemail? 15, 20 seconds? You know,
Yeah. And again, you've already done all the other hard work. Why not take the extra time?
yeah. And the other one, when we were talking about the person who picks up the phone, I said there's three things you need to do, and I think I learned this from you as well, Art. I said number one is make them your friend, number two is make them a good friend, and number three, make them your best friend.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, yeah, if you can do that, that is awesome. Baby steps. It
yeah.
may not happen right at the beginning, but I just want them to be in a positive frame of mind, so I could accomplish those
Yeah,
things.
one of the things, and how do you feel about asking that person is the person who answers the phone, they answered in the company name. Sometimes they answered using their own name, sometimes they don't. How do you feel about finding out what their name is and then using their name back to them, Art?
Well, yeah, most definitely. If somebody I answer my phone, "Hi, this is Art." And if somebody starts saying, Mr. Sobczak, now they've placed themselves at a different level. So I'm not comfortable with that. So I've kind of given implied permission that it's okay to use the first name. And I mean, Dale Carnegie said the sweetest sound that we can hear is the sound of our own name.
Yeah,
Now, with that being said, there are some people that are a little uncomfortable with being too familiar too early. So if they didn't use their first name, what I will often say is, by the way, my name is Art. May I call you colleague?
yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that, and then you've got permission, that's, how to do it. One of the things is, and I actually told you earlier before we started, I'm working on a webinar on mindset. How important do you believe mindset is in selling on the telephone, Art?
I would say it's the number one key to success in not only selling on the telephone, but selling in general. And even take it a step further. I mean, life in general, because everything flows from our thinking. And particularly in sales, where just inherently we put ourselves proactively into positions every day where we are not going to accomplish the primary goal that we want to accomplish. I mean, think of any other profession. I mean, other than say sports, where basketball player is going to miss over half the time, baseball player is going to swing and miss over 66% of the time. In sales, we are not going to accomplish our primary objective, and therefore, people have attached negative connotation to that and negative labels such as rejection, right?
Yeah.
And as a result, that's why a lot of people have gotten out of sales, and that's why many people are reluctant to be proactive in picking up the phone, particularly in prospecting. So we must proactively do things to keep our attitude up. And if we don't, just our environment will naturally pull people down. So mindset, I would say, is responsible for probably about 90% of our success. I mean, accountant can come in every day and maybe not have a positive mindset and still put out a passable spreadsheet. But I mean, it's not going to work for us, not on a consistent basis. So absolutely, there's a lot of things we need to do. And again, in the subtitle of the book, I talk about eliminate fear, failure, and rejection. How do we get rid of rejection? Well, rejection is not what happens to you. It is the way you define what happens to you. It's not the experience itself, it's the story we tell ourselves about the experience. And too many people tell themselves negative stories about all kinds of things that hold them back. So if you have the opportunity to actually create a story about an experience, why would we make it negative? So instead, we can get a win. We can say, well, at least I learned something on this call. At least I learned they weren't a prospect. At least I kept the door open for the future. So there we go.
One of my favorite sayings is, there's no such thing as failure, only feedback.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We can get feedback, and I mean, even self-feedback, right? Every time we get off a phone call, I suggest asking two questions. Number one, what did I like about that call? And number two, what would I have done differently? And you can look at that as a win, because you can get a graduate degree in sales just by asking yourself better questions at the end of every call.
Yeah, and one of the things, we're in the middle of this pandemic. Uh, People are working from home. Uh, uh, how would you recommend that they can benefit from prospecting with this pandemic? I actually have got a new prospect coming up next month to start working with in the middle of this pandemic who contacted me.
I've had a couple of my best months ever. Granted, everybody today needs to be doing telephone selling, so a lot of people realize that they need to get good at it if they want to survive. But how should we be prospecting during this pandemic? Well, I'll tell you what, I mean, I've got success stories of people that are absolutely crushing it right now. And from the very first couple days that this started, I suggest to people that don't be paralyzed by this, because people are still in business. And, granted, everybody's life and business has been changed in some way, but unless a business closed its doors, they've either found a way to adapt, or they're planning for how they're going to come out of it. And what I suggest every salesperson does is you look at what do we have that uniquely positions us to help our prospects with the new issues and problems and challenges that they have. And it requires some thought, and the people that did that early on are the ones that are thriving, and the ones that didn't are the ones that are struggling, or they're going out of business. And anything that happens always creates opportunity, regardless of how bad it is. And the people that are looking for the opportunities and the opportunities to be of service and to help, those are the ones that are doing extremely well. And a bad sales call before the pandemic is going to be a bad sales call during and after the pandemic. So we still need to make sure that we've got a good process, we've got good messaging, and even more so than at any time, we're engaging in conversations, we're listening, we're finding out about what type of position are our prospects in, and how can we help them.
Exactly, Art. And and saying that, I'm reminded of the Napoleon Hill quote: "In every adversity is contained the seeds of greatness." So, how can we benefit? And one of the things I think, Art, and might be a good place to finish, is how much do you think telephone salespeople need to open their minds?
Open their mind in what way?
Because I get some people, and I've seen people, oh, I can't do this, I don't know how to do it, I'm not good at it. I'm starting to work next week with somebody in the recruitment business who has their own recruitment business. They're just a startup, and they go, oh, I'm not good at selling, I'm not good on the telephone. And I feel like saying, rubbish. So what would you say? I'm sure you hear this all the time as well.
Well, I've been in the telephone sales business my entire adult career, and even before that. Some people would argue if I'm an adult right now, but well, people are now being forced. They've got no choice but to sell remotely. And the ones that have been doing it all along, I mean, they know the power of it. And let's go back to mindset again. What I said before. Whatever somebody is telling themselves right now about anything becomes their reality. And I mean, nothing has meaning until we give it meaning, right? So if somebody says, I'm not good on the phone, and nobody's picking up the phone, nobody's talking, of course, that's what's going to happen. And they're going to prove it, because they're not going to be picking up the phone, or they're going to go in with a negative attitude. The other people who are saying, you know what, I haven't really been using the phone much up to this point, but it's going to be the new normal. And in order for me to be successful, I'm going to have to get good at this. So I'm going to go out and find out, what are the people doing who are doing it successfully now? What are they doing, and how can I do it as well? And I'm going to get the information, and I'm going to put in the work, and I'm going to be excellent at this. I mean, it's like anything else. So people just need to change their stories. And if if you can communicate, if you can speak, and if you can speak to somebody face to face, you most definitely can do it over the phone as well as with video, because video is just going to get bigger in all parts of the sales process, both sending video, personalized video, and then also doing live video like we're doing here right now.
Yeah, and I think, and I think that Zoom is really something that's taken forward. And I actually was reading about the growth of Zoom. They've gone from 650,000 clients in January to something like 6 million in 4 months.
Yeah, amazing. Zoom, and there's a number of other competitors out there as well that are as good or even better than Zoom. So those are people that are seeing the opportunities, and again, they're doing what we just talked about.
Yeah, and exactly. One of the things which I say to people is I do this one-day workshop, it's called Selling is Simple. And what I say is selling is only a conversation with a purpose. And that's really one of the things that you got to do. The other thing I was thinking as you speak, one of my favorite sales books, and I'm sure you've read it, goes back to the 1930s, and that was Frank Bettger. I know, How I Raised Myself from Failure to Success in Selling.
Yep, that's a classic.
Yeah, and that's one of the best sales books ever. When I get all these things, and I would like your comment on all these people coming up with these new ideas. I won't use any of these acronyms that people are using about. Do you think people are trying too much to reinvent the wheel? Or
well, it's kind of funny because it seems like every few months you'll see something new, a new shiny object. And I mean, we've gone through sales 2.0, sales 3.0, and social selling, which I never got because I thought all selling is social, right?
Yeah.
And and Mike Weinberg wrote an entire book about this, and he calls it Sales Truth. And really, to sum it up, sales is sales. And if you're trying to make it too complicated, or if you're looking for the next new shiny object or a fad, what's going to happen is we take our eye off the ball, and we're not practicing the fundamentals. I mean, the fact is the fundamentals still work. They always have worked, and they always will work. I was looking at a LinkedIn conversation the other day, and I try not to do this too much because it'll make you crazy. And it was a bunch of younger sales reps, and they said, yeah, I picked up an old sales book the other day, and some of the stuff was outdated, and I really want to follow all the new people, because the old stuff really doesn't work anymore. And it took all I had to not go in there and just start commenting and saying that's right, because none of that stuff ever worked, right? And I mean, Bettger's book is a great example of that. I mean, the classics are the classics for a reason, and human behavior in the human mind really hasn't changed. Has technology made it easier for us to do a lot of things? Yeah, absolutely. And technology also has hindered our ability to do things in a lot of ways, because people get distracted from actually putting in the activity and doing the things that work, and actually talking to human beings.
Yeah, and I look at myself as that I've got to be careful. Where's my focus going today? Is what's somebody saying on LinkedIn? Is anybody following me on Facebook? And then you suddenly find you've gone off on a tangent. So they're doing that. Yeah, and the interesting thing that you were saying about, I actually heard someone on LinkedIn said the other day, relationship selling is dead, social selling is the new way forward. And I like you, I felt like making a comment. Social selling is relationship selling, and solutionship selling is dead. It's you got to give them A, B, D to Z, and I go no. And I love the Frank Bettger line. What is it he said is, show me a man who will honestly tell a story 5 or 6 times a day, and you'll show me a success. Now, has that changed?
Yeah. It's funny. Anytime I see somebody saying something is dead, I just have to go look at all the people that are doing what they say is dead successfully. And then I also have to look at what are they trying to sell, because they're saying that something else is dead.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just it's trying to invent the new me. And one of the things that when we started this conversation is the internet can either be a blessing or a curse. And old Marcus Aurelius said, "Nothing's good or bad except thinking makes it so." And look at the amount of research you can do on LinkedIn to that you can talk to people. I think I'm linked to people go, "Oh, why are you linked to all your competitors?" And I go, "I don't have any competitors. I have people who do the same thing as me. And I think we learn from each other."
Absolutely. Yeah. We people who are worried in our business about competitors probably aren't doing very well, because they're feel threatened and they're not secure in the value that they're delivering. And yeah, I agree. The internet can be unbelievably awesome if we use it in the right way, but it can also be a huge time waste for a lot of people. And just because somebody is putting in the activity doesn't mean that's accomplishment. I mean, if somebody is just commenting and liking posts all day and sending out emails and not actually engaging in real conversations, they're not selling. That might be called social selling, but I call it social activity.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, thank you very much. And your new book is Smart Selling. This is an old. This is the last. This is when is this? 19.
That's the first edition.
Yeah, that's the first. Yeah, that came out in
2010.
Yeah, 1990. Or no, 2010.
Right.
Yeah, 2010. I will put a link into the new edition, both available on Barnes and Noble, Amazon, and other well-known traders on the internet, and a link to the new edition of the book. I strongly recommend it to anybody who's in. I use arts techniques to sell sales excellence, and I know for a fact arts techniques work. Well, they have been for 37 years for you, Art.
They have, and the thing about sales is that we always can get better when we put the work in. So, and I'm coming up with new ways and getting better myself every day. And the thing is, as salespeople, we just can't stop learning, right?
Yeah. And one thing I always tell the people that I'm training, I said, there's one time my ideas don't work. And they all go, "When's that?" And I said, "When you don't use them."
When you don't use them, that's right.
Yeah.
This will work if you do.
Yeah. Art, thank you very much for joining me today and for taking time out. It's gone 4:45 here in Ireland. So I take it it's just we got the time mixed up yesterday, and I apologize for that.
That's okay. Well, it sounds like it's about happy hour for you there. So I'm just starting my day. Kelly, thank you so much for having me on. This was great. I enjoyed sharing information, and thank you all for listening and watching.
Yeah. And discover more about Art Sobczak. For telephone sales tips, go to businessbyphone.com and get the latest edition of Art's book, Smart Selling.